Cheers.
Cheers.
So,
Out of focus, dude.
there we go. I'm going to go in and out of focus just like what I am without my coffee in the morning. Hey, our feature artist is Billboard's Urban Cowboy, Kenny Rogers. He stacked up over 75 top 10 hits across the Hot 100, the country, and adult contemporary charts, including one that was number one on all three charts at the same time. In total, 11 songs reached the top 6 on the Hot 100, solo, duets, and 2 with the first edition. Remember them? Here's our game. He's Trip Rogers. I'm Phil Yale, and I'm challenging you all to name 5 of Kenny Rogers' 11 top 6 hits. Trip, fire away.
All right. Well, the Kenny Rogers in the first edition, Something's Burning.
Not on the
list. Okay. Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town.
Ruby, indeed. Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. A great, great song about the Vietnam era.
Yeah. Okay. A duet, obviously, Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers with Islands in the Stream.
Obviously. Yep. That peaked at number 1.
You were describing a song that was number 1 at the same time on 3 charts, and it's one of 2. It's either Lady or it's She Believes in Me. One of the 2, I'm pretty sure.
It is indeed Lady.
Yeah, I thought
Lady was the one. Do you know who wrote that song?
And who wrote that song, Phil?
Lionel Richie wrote that song.
Very good. Just checking, buddy.
Yeah, Lionel Richie wrote that one. And Islands in the Stream, that was written by the Bee Gees, by the way.
Yeah. The Gambler, obviously.
And surprisingly, it only peaked at number 16.
Wow. Okay. She Believes. We've Got Tonight with Sheena Easton.
We've Got Tonight with Sheena Easton. It peaked at number 6. That was in 1983. That was a cover of a song by somebody else.
Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band.
Yep. And Kenny and Sheena did better with it. Bob Seger only got up to number 13. They got up to number 6. He had one more with the first edition. He had one more that was with a duet with another female vocalist.
Don't Fall in Love with a Dreamer with Kim Carnes.
Very good. That peaked at number 4. That was in 1980. And what was Kim Carnes' big hit?
Betty Davis Eyes.
That's what I was looking for. Betty Davis Eyes.
And listen, there's another story for the B-side on that one. I'm trying to think now for Kenny. I mean, unless you count We Are the World, because he was one of the singers on that, and that went to number 1, but I don't think you are.
I didn't include that one. Good point, though.
Yeah, right. I didn't think you did. I have like 3 Kenny Rogers greatest hits albums. So I should know this.
Well, let's work our way down. They have the 2 number 1s, Lady and Islands in the Stream. Then he had a number 3 in 1979. It inspired a made-for-TV movie. The
Gambler.
According to my notes, no. It is Coward
of the County.
Coward of the County. There we go.
All right.
And by the way, we do have some great stories coming up in the B-side. And a little bit later, Tripp's going to share his own personal American Pie from the standpoint of how he was impacted the day somebody that he really was into as an artist died. Next up is a single. It was produced by Lionel Richie. It was in 1981. I Don't Need You.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, we had Don't Fall in Love with a Dreamer. Why don't you go ahead and tell your Kim Carnes story now?
Well, the Kim Carnes story I'll tell is Kim Carnes and Kenny Rogers both worked together in the New Christy Minstrels back in the 60s. And that's where Kim Carnes met her husband, Dave Ellington, who she's been married to for 50 plus years. So anyhow, the Kim Carnes story I tell is Kim had come out in 1980 with the song More Love. Smokey Robinson loved the song. He said, I'm going to write you a song. And he wrote a song for her. His manager said, don't give it to Kim Carnes. You do it. And it ended up being a big hit, Being With You. Okay. That's the first story. Second story, obviously, the song Betty Davis Eyes, Kim Carnes' biggest hit. It was a monster hit, #1 song from 1981. And rightfully so, won a Grammy and all kinds of stuff. What 60s pop star co-wrote that song?
Ah, you got me. I have no.
Jackie DeShannon.
Oh,
Jackie
Jackie
DeShannon.
Shannon.
Jackie DeShannon. And she had originally recorded it. And the other part of that story is Betty Davis formed a friendship with Kim Carnes. After that song, Betty Davis wrote a note, and she said, "Thank you for making me important to my grandson." And Kim Carnes saw Betty Davis just before she passed away, and always talked about that. Kenny Rogers and the First Edition, remember, had a television show. They produced it in Canada, and they were doing this show. And it was at that point that Kenny said, "I want to go off solo. I want to try doing it." Well, it took a while for him to start having some hits. His first hit as a solo artist was the song Lucille that gained national traction in 1977. I remember that one. You picked the fine time to leave me, Lucille. So I interrupted. I've hijacked. Moving on.
Well, but you've tied in a couple things. He started off with the First Edition. That's what it was called. It was called the First Edition. They had a #5 song that was brought back to life during I think it was in the Big Lebowski movie. I just dropped in. Remember the line?
I see what condition my condition was in. Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, that's got a whole like a psychedelic thing. Most people wouldn't even associate that song with Kenny Rogers.
Oh, yeah.
That's when he was.
Yeah.
That was with the First Edition. Lucille, that you just talked about, peaked at #5. That was in 1977. Had another #5 song in 79 that you already mentioned, and that's "She Believes in Me." Then it was Kenny Rogers in the First Edition. Now he's the front person. Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. We've got Tonight, you've talked about. The final one was in 1982. Is
Love Will Turn You Around from the movie, wouldn't it be?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there was one just outside of the top 6, came in at #7, You Decorated My Life.
That was a huge wedding song.
Yeah, for
many years.
Tripp, you don't like me singing. You don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to sing at all on that one.
No.
Let's shift over to the inside. Of course, Don McLean's American Pie captured, a generation's grief when the music died with Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and Richie Valens. Looking back, Tripp, was there one artist whose passing you felt like the world just went quiet?
Well, I think the artist that I really was bummed by his passing was Jim Croce. And I say this because Jim Croce was just coming into his own. He had just had the big #1 song with Bad Leroy Brown. He had a way with songs. And he was not a young man. He was in his early 30s. And I remember waking up that fateful morning and listening to WABC, hear Harry Harrison tell me that Jim Croce died in a plane crash the night before. And I think it speaks volumes that his song "Time in a Bottle" became a posthumous #1 song.
Yes.
And it's just, I think Jim Croce, that was one death that just kind of takes the air out of the balloon. Now, the thing about, I was thinking about this subject, anytime you lose an artist, I think part of it is timing. And I say this because if an artist retires and after a few years passes away, you're kind of like, okay, it was nice, but I don't think there's the collective shock. Elvis Presley, when he died, there was a shock to a certain extent because he was only 42. John Lennon's death and Michael Jackson's death, I kind of pair together. And I say this because John Lennon had just come out of his retirement. He had released a new album. And the way he passed away, he was the first Beatle, and he died, in a violent way, gun violence, which he was, a peace lover, that. And I think that was such a shock. And then Michael Jackson was just preparing to go back on a concert. He was going to do the concerts in London. And him dying, if it had happened a year before, both of them, I don't know if you would have had the same type of impact. Actually, we're just about the anniversary of Brian Wilson's passing. And that was, that was a tough moment. Because again, he, what he represented, but again, he was sick. You knew he had dementia. He was not doing well, and you could just see that. One of the other parts is our world has changed. And again, I talked about Jim Croce. We heard about it on the radio. It wasn't like today where you had social media. You pick up your phone in the morning, you could find out what happened. What happened overnight. You have this window to the world right at your fingertips. The death of the three mentioned in American Pie, that was again, Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, both had just burst on stage. You knew there were big things from them. So the sense of loss, you do realize that MCA Records released Buddy Holly material for another 9 years after he passed away. That's how much material that had been recorded by Buddy Holly. He was a studio creature. And, you just kind of wonder what would have happened with Buddy. Richie Valens was very young at the time. You never knew what was going to happen with him. And there's a sense of loss. And I think that's why some of these deaths really affect you.
Viewers, I'm interested in who your American Pie artist is. Please share that and any insights you want to share. Please put that in your comments. I'll just mention one. People outside of Northeast Ohio have no idea who I'm talking about, but it would have been Michael Stanley. He died March 5th of 2021. He was the artist that kind of defined my 30s and my 40s and into my 50s, a little bit of my 60s. And I had a chance to talk to him briefly on a couple occasions. They had a celebration of life ceremony for him at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I had a chance to go down there, and that's my American Pie artist. Okay, I'm going to go into what I learned from this episode. Tripp, I'm curious what you have, and again, viewers, please share if you don't mind what you learned from this episode. I learned that Lionel Richie was involved in a couple of Kenny Rogers hits. The first one was Lady, that he wrote and produced. He was also the producer of the song I Don't Need You. I didn't know that. I didn't know that the version by Kenny Rogers and Sheena Easton of We've Got Tonight actually outcharted the version by Bob Seger. That's what I learned. Tripp, what about you?
You reminded me of the music video for the first edition, psychedelic. And that was what a lot of artists were doing. They would do these musical performances on television. They would do those crazy effects just to kind of jazz up, guys sitting there playing guitars. A lot of times, remember, on television, they were lip syncing. So this was a way to jazz up the show, jazz it up a little bit, because some people got upset about lip syncing songs. Of course, on the Ed Sullivan Show, you performed your songs live, and that was something that was made abundantly clear in some instances. And there are great stories about the Ed Sullivan Show.
Let's move on to our triple play for this episode. Tripp, favorite Kenny Rogers song? Can be any Kenny Rogers song.
Well, I'll give you the three that I think that are my favorites. We've Got Tonight with Sheena Easton, Islands in the Stream with Dolly Parton, and then the other Kenny Rogers song, which I really, really like, and I've always had a soft spot in my heart for it, was the song Lucille, because Kenny Rogers at that point told a story. And it was the first time that you heard, if there's the first time you heard Kenny Rogers, and for me, it was after a while, the story that the song tells. And Kenny could do such a great job with them. And of course, he was one of our more endearing entertainers. He had a long, long career, passed away a few years ago. And, he is still remembered very fondly by a lot of folks.
I'm going to pick a song. It's not a real upbeat song, but it is also a story song. It's a great song that talks about what was taking place in the late 1960s. And that song is Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. Well, there you have it, another episode of Trippin' Up. Listen to Trip weekday afternoons on Q 105.3 in Savannah, Georgia, WRHQ.com, and WTRS Radio. That's his internet radio station, by the way. You can find it on the TuneIn radio app. The Music Yearbook is on Facebook. Another great show. You can find that on Facebook and vinyl, 91.9 WBNJ in Barnegat, New Jersey, and 107.5 WRUU in Savannah, Georgia. Thanks for joining us. Keep the music memories spinning by watching one of these videos right here. Until the next time, keep the coffee brewing and the conversation flowing.